Good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Jason Weaver. I'm the Southeast Director of the Asphalt Seal Coating Manufacturer Association. Tom Ennis, Sustainability Officer with the City of Austin, Texas. We're going to go over a fairly heavy subject today in terms of pollutants, and I'll go ahead and get us kicked off. So our topic, you've heard of PFAS, but what are PAHs? A little lesser known pollutant. Here in the class, you're going to basically better understand the toxicity and harmful effects of the PAHs and how to reduce or eliminate them from the streets or water runoff. Attendees, you guys will be educated and introduced to a new spec for asphalt preservation, keeping these things in mind for a better material, maintaining roads and streets in the future. You guys will be better equipped to understand and offer an eco-friendly and safer alternative to traditional asphalt treatments and preservation when we're done. And if you haven't done so, the app is available for you, APWA, PWX Conference app. Just a little bit about that. Who are these knuckleheads? All right, well, I'm the first knucklehead. Again, Jason Weaver. Tom and I are both involved with ASMA, Asphalt Sealcoat Manufacturers Association. I'm a seal coat manufacturer in South Carolina, also a contractor, asphalt preservation contractor. And Tom is more on the government side of things, public works, as the Sustainability Officer in the Watershed Department with the City of Austin, Texas. Tom's also the chair of Coal Tar Free America, which is basically the #1 resource, in my opinion, in terms of spreading knowledge, awareness of the pollutants that come in asphalt sealants. And also in implementing the bans across America. So first we'll just do a little comparison. PAHs, that's polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and PFAS, that's polyfluoroalkyl substances. You'll see that there's a lot of similarities between the two. If you go down the list there, and really, I think one of the major differences is that the EPA has just now basically put the stamp on PFAS, forever chemicals, they're known as. I don't know if you all have seen, there's a few documentaries out there. But they are synthetic, they're man-made chemicals, and they've been known for 25 plus years. I think one of the most popular ones would be Teflon. There's been a few documentaries made specifically about that. There's a feature film, Dark Waters, Mark Ruffalo, who was the Incredible Hulk in the Avengers movies. And just last week, the EPA has announced that these are considered now hazardous chemicals after 25 years. It's taken that long. We're not quite there yet on PAHs, but we're working on it. They are classified by the EPA as a PBT, persistent bioaccumulative toxin. They're both naturally occurring and man-made. Excuse me. And they've been a known problem chemical for over 100 years, and even longer, as you'll see later in the presentation. This is the first proof of chemicals causing cancer. There's no movies yet, no documentaries, still a little lesser known, I should say, and there's no clear direction from the EPA on their stance, where they're going to go with it. So we're here to spread awareness. So PAHs, we'll break it down a little bit. Poly, meaning many, cyclic, with a rounded shape. Aromatic, detected by smell. A hydrocarbon contains hydrogen and carbon. And many are carcinogenic, toxic, and mutagenic as well. Just bad all around. PAHs in history, I said more than 100 years. This goes back to 1700s with chimney sweeps. Whenever people were burning coal to heat their houses, the chimney sweeps would have to go in there. Normally they were children, smaller, able to squeeze into the chimney chutes and literally sweep away the residue. A lot of these children contracted cancer. And I think that was basically the first realization that there was an issue there. Coal tar, and more specifically, we're going to be talking about these pollutants and pavement sealers and how they apply to the municipal level, products that you all would apply to streets, parking lots in the city, products that are specified, and bring awareness to the potential dangers in those products. Coal tar is one of those products. Not always been looked at as a bad thing. It was the source of many early chemistry discoveries, such as aspirin, dyes, preservatives, makeup, and fragrances. It's still in a lot of makeup, lipstick in particular. And it's a common toxic found in old manufacturing gas plants producing home heat and light gases. This was before electricity. It was typically used to treat psoriasis, dry skin, and used in dandruff shampoos, which it still is today. And scientists have used coal tar to induce cancer in laboratory animals. So this is known. I mean, this is readily available information and has been for some time in modern history. So the largest cities in South Carolina and North Carolina have banned coal tar and other high PAH containing pavement sealers. That would be Charlotte, where we are today, Queen City, and Greenville, South Carolina, the only city in the state of South Carolina to have a ban. There are 1, 2, 3 cities in North Carolina now with bans. And I'm from South Carolina. I think it's safe to say that we're a little behind the times when it comes to this types of thing. The question is why? Why the bans? I think this picture pretty much sums it up. This was basically the first realization. This was a fish kill from Boone, North Carolina that happened some time ago. The contractor had freshly applied pavement sealer to I believe it was a BB&T bank actually. Up pops a shower, thunder shower, as that happens quite often here. And it washed that uncured sealant into the adjacent stream. And they had a massive fish kill. And Boone is a pretty environmentally sensitive area, as all places in the Appalachian Mountains. So it was not taken lightly. The PAHs in the stormwater runoffs, just like the fish kill, the streams go into the rivers will go into lakes, and then ultimately into the ocean. More commonly in our municipal areas, the materials will wear out. Pavement sealers don't wear out, they wear off. And as they wear off, they wear into fine particles, and they'll be washed into retention ponds from the streets into the catch basins through the piping systems and ultimately into the retention ponds where they will settle to the bottom as sediment and live there for 100 years or plus, plus or minus. So now we're creating a problem by doing this. There are alternatives. Some other urban sources of PAHs, and I want you to take note of the values here. These are in milligrams per kilogram or parts per million. Fresh asphalt, 1.5 parts per million. Road dust, 24 parts per million. Used motor oil. So imagine a kilogram of used motor oil. That'd be a quart maybe, something like that. So 440 parts per million. You take the equivalent amount of pavement sealers, coal tar being the worst offender, 70,000 parts per million. So used motor oil is pretty nasty stuff. I don't know if you ever changed your own oil before, but it's not pretty. And imagine sealing your entire parking lot with used motor oil. It's a crazy idea, right? Imagine sealing it with something that's nearly 20 times as toxic. Some of the safer sealers have come out today, the petroleum resin, cracked asphalt residue sealers, LP, they've got all kinds of names for them. They're not much safer in comparison to asphalt emulsion. You see the asphalt-based sealants, 50 to 150 parts per million. And just look at the difference between the petroleum resins, coal tar, and the asphalt sealants. It's tremendous. So it's some different application methods. You've probably seen guys in the parking lots walking around with the wand in their hand, spraying the material down. It's very common. Probably the most common application method. It's the cheapest for guys to get into from a business standpoint. And when it comes to a contractor's perspective, and I might go a little off topic here, from a contractor's perspective, what I've found is that they're looking for the most durable product, period. Doesn't matter. Well, if you consider the durability of, let's say, lead-based paint versus our waterborne paints today, which are the safer alternative, we know which one's safer, you know. We use a lot more asphalt sealant than we do paint. And I can't really state facts or anything on that, but, you know, think about all the parking lots, highways, residential streets, the square footage of those areas, the amount of material going down by a spray or a squeegee, a truck application. We're putting a ton of this material down only to wear off and go into our rivers and streams. So what's in pavement sealers? Kind of touched on. Many of them are water-based mixtures, emulsions. They must be stirred or agitated or the materials will settle out. It's kind of like making waffle mix in the morning. You know, if you let it sit too long, it'll start to settle out. The water will rise to the top. You have to stir it up again before you make the waffle. The most common base materials are coal tar or asphalt. There are some others, but these are the most common. And then there's filler materials, clay, minerals, and sand. We add polymers for flexibility and to speed up the curing time. Cellulose fibers are added for reinforcement as well. That's actually made from trees. So here's a picture here of previously sealed asphalt surface. Again, the material's worn out, worn off. After the material's applied, you'll see this sometimes. Basically, you'll have a little bit of what they call it sand rollout. You'll have some accumulation around the low points in the parking lots, around the catch basins and whatnot. And you'll be able to pick some of it up on your finger like this. That's kind of a good illustration of what's happening over time, but you'll be able to see it immediately after a fresh job. So PAHs and asphalt sealers, as we saw earlier, they're most present high concentration in coal tar. The ethylene cracked residue, petroleum resin, LP sealers, These are some of the newer sealers to hit the market. Rejuvenators, it's a pretty cool name. These are normally some of the worst offenders. Fuels or solvents are used. To rejuvenate, you have to penetrate the surface of the asphalt. A lot of contractors use diesel fuel to clean the asphalt off their shovels. That would penetrate the surface of the asphalt. Fuels or solvents. And blends of above. We're seeing that a lot. This year, and specifically, there's been a coal tar shortage. A lot of the big manufacturers, the coal tar manufacturers, also make other products, but coal tar is their bread and butter. And due to the lack of, supply chain issues, the lack of materials available to them, they're basically forced to make blends. These are not necessarily typically specified products, but kind of a combination of what might be available at the time. It's not all the time, but this season's been a really good illustration of this in the current supply chain issue. So there's lower concentrations of PAHs in asphalt-based sealers. Obviously, some contain 0.00% PAH content, which would be the lowest tested amount. Typical regulation, like here in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, the regulation is 0.1% maximum PAH content. Be 1,000 parts per million. Some other pH containing items. Used minerals I mentioned earlier. Exhaust fumes, you're going to see that. That's kind of a no-brainer. Industrial emissions, asphalt, coal tar, as I said, tires and crumb rubber. You can kind of see the carbon aspect of all these items. So the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health recently did a study, the first of its kind, the first exposure, so to speak. I'm going to play this quick video. It kind of sums up the exposure that these crew members are experiencing, and really people in communities around these projects as well. All right, we're going to let Tom take it away on the science.
Alrighty. So yes, it's after lunch, and we're going to talk about some science relatively quickly. So let's see how this goes. Interesting. What I'd really like you to see after the end of this presentation is next time you cross a parking lot, I'd really prefer you to think about it completely differently. If you do that, maybe that's another learning objective. A lot of people see, oh, isn't that a cute picture of a girl with chalk art, you know, playing whatever, draw a nice picture. The reality is the girl touching the asphalt, that's a exposure, skin exposure, because this stuff absorbs through your skin. That's a toxic exposure, but you can find schools throughout our country that still use this stuff. It's terrible. Let's talk some science. Jason talked about this being toxic, mutagenic, teratogenic, carcinogenic. And here's some different PAH levels. When we talk about birth defects, I mean, what's amazing about this is studies, people who study this, they find out it's birth outcomes. We talk about everybody having an equal footing and equal way up. By the day you're born, you can track your PAH exposure when you're a baby or in utero, I can tell you statistically whether you're going to have behavior problems, whether you're going to have IQ deficits, etc., by your exposure in the womb. Yet, this is still prevalent in much of this country. These are these levels. The bottom level is a probable effects concentration. What happens in a stream when you're at 23 parts per million? That's when you start negatively affecting life in a stream. We've got products that are over 70,000 parts per million. That's a problem. This is a synopsis. If any of you want this research document, this is a hyperlink document to where a lot of this research exists. That's gone into the different routes because research, you might say, oh, let's talk about what it's like when it's tracked into the house. Let's talk about what it's once washed off. Those are different research papers. So we've got, and there's everyone from France to Canada to the United States and all around have done studies finding and no one, surprisingly, except the industry's own studies, find that this isn't a problem. Here's a study, the Chinese did a study and compared indoor air quality to the worst industrial city in China to a research that we did in Austin to exposure to when people track coal tar sealants into their apartment. You see the blue line is North America. We've got worse indoor air quality because of coal tar pavement sealants in Austin. Historically, we banned it, than you do in a nasty industrial city in China. Kind of goes to that point, PAHs cross the blood, across the placenta and the blood-brain barrier. The AMA has supported banning coal tar sealants since I think it was 2016. This is the second bullet is that what I was talking about, we studied with the U.S. Geological Survey, the City of Austin did, and looked at dust study, indoor dust study, and the effects on children. And so it's a lot of research has gone in and demonstrates the problem. State of Connecticut, here's an example of a health agency that actually weighed in and says, we don't recommend you use this at all. Regarding regulations, people's question is, well, what about the EPA? Well, my question is, which part of the EPA are you talking about? We get different answers from different people in the EPA. So interesting, left that first one, EPA approved it to be reused again back in 1993. So they said, because the industry complained, hey, if you don't let us reuse this, it's going to overfill the landfill. So we've got to reuse it. So EPA gave them an exception. But then they've done their own study, like that 2011 study shows that they recommend the best way to address PAH pollution from coal tar sealants is to ban it. So they're, on the one hand, they are allowing it. On the other hand, they're recommending you ban it. But they recommend cities ban it, not themselves. They sponsored seminars to inform people about it. And the interesting thing too, in 2016, if you're a government person, TSCA, if you're familiar with it, Toxic Substances Control Act, reaffirmed in 2016, because it was rewritten, reaffirmed the role of cities and states in leading the nation in addressing toxins. So they're saying in that TSCA law, you don't have to wait for us to answer the question. Do it yourselves. There's a map. We see 45 million Americans are under a coal tar sealant ban in the country. Maine, New York, Maryland, Minnesota, Washington. California they don't use it on state highways. Illinois requires if you're going to use it at schools, you have to notify parents before you use it at school. That's the best they could do. And then all the rest, push pins are just local bans. There's a list of all the different bans we have around the country. Like I say, we have with states and districts with a ban in their boundaries, we have 13 all across the country, from West Coast to East Coast. The city of Austin was the first city to pass a ban of this type in 2005. I was in charge of overseeing the enforcement of that. People say, well, we're regulating one black liquid versus another black liquid. How would you possibly regulate that? Well, we figured out how to do that. It's not that hard. And using those sort of 4 steps there, clearly say what's the consequences, let everybody know, enforcement. And we were going to pass this law and we had a lot of accusations that cities pass rules all the time and they never enforce them. Well, we were very serious about this and we got after it. And the proof of that, well, I'll get to that slide, but we also have developed with other cities and states this Sealcoat testing program, because now we've got, if you just ban coal tar and asphalt, but now, as Jason said, we now have new products on the market that are not really coal tar and are not really asphalt, but they're sort of behave chemically more like coal tar, but legally they're not. So that's why towns are going from just banning coal tar to putting a PAH level to it. And you can go on our website. We have retail products as well as commercial products available there. That's the list. I know, and that's online, so I can happy to help you steer there if you're looking for it. But if you just did Site Lab PAH, Site Labs is the main lab we used for this study. This is Lady Bird Lake in Austin. We had a 60% reduction in PAH values 8 years after we passed our ban. So sometimes is it theoretical only? No, actually, if you enforce it, you actually can show improvements in your water quality. MS4 permits is a whole nother question. Some people have these written into their MS4 permits as good housekeeping processes, but most public works people are in demand. Hey, we want to do green infrastructure. That's really cool to do. Well, if you're still using coal tar sealants, that's one of the stupidest ideas because you're going to be contaminating. Most green infrastructure is taking runoff and cleaning it up. Well, you're going to move all those PAHs to that green infrastructure, and there it sits for a liability for somebody else in the future. In Minneapolis, St. Paul, they had over $1 billion of liability in their stormwater ponds from coal tar sealants. As we say, you have less, with these kind of products, less toxic runoff. We minimize mutagenic runoff, and water quality is not a concern of these products, and no harmful residue in the sediment. Actions, back to you.
up those asthma specs. So at ASMA, our mission is provide a common specification for asphalt-based sealants, the safer alternative to ensure quality product, performance, environmental safety. And I've printed out some of our ASMA specifications, which can be used by municipalities, basically as a copy and paste. It goes through everything from product specifications to surface preparation, application, testing, quality control. It is a spec, and you can put it right into your spec. That's the purpose of us creating that. And we advocate for the use of non-toxic sealants and urge public and private regulation or restriction of the sealer products, as they've done here in Charlotte. Again, our product, we're not product specific. We basically, it's a family of products that we are recommending based on their PAH content. That's really all that matters, is the pollution content. These products are just as durable as coal tar sealants, about 95%. You know, you'll hear that argument from some contractors. Well, the asphalt sealant's not as durable. Well, that's not true. We've put down over 200,000 gallons of asphalt sealant this year, and I can tell you it's very durable. Again, these are category-specific specifications with materials of 0.1% PAH or less, and all these guidelines are provided in the document that we'll hand out. We urge you guys to help us to join ASMA. You can sign up at asmausa.org. It's free for government entities. We ask that you please go to the website and sign up. You're not going to get spammed or anything like that. It's just there for a means of support. You'll be able to find most of the information that we hit on today. The lists as well will be on that website. You'll be able to see the PAH levels of many of the most commonly sold sealers in America. You'll be able to network with other government representatives. You'll be listed in the membership directory. You'll have our ASMA specification will be on the website as well, in case you lose your copy. We'd love to get your opinion on some Sealcoat topics as well. You'll be able to find ASMA certified products and contractors as well. You can participate in member forums and basically learn the best practices. Our contact information. We can send this presentation to anyone as well. There's Tom's. You know, I just want to hit on real world real quick. This is really what brings this into perspective, okay? I was a coal tar applicator for years. Some nasty stuff. At the end of the season, we have to climb into the tanks and chisel the dried sealant off the inside of these tanks. And somehow I always convinced my little brother to do it. And he would go in there, and I'm telling you, this is the worst skin reaction I've ever seen. Imagine falling asleep on the beach for the entire day, having a severe sunburn, blistering, skin peeling off your body in sheets. I mean, it was disgusting. It happens to all the contractors, okay? It's obviously a problem. There's obviously something wrong when we use and apply these products. You can only imagine what's doing to microorganisms and, you know, fish, other things in the environment. But we can put a stop to this. It's going to take a group effort, and it's going to take spreading awareness. So please take what you've learned today and share it with your colleagues, because there's really no other way to stop this. You know, I've just kind of done the math in my head. I'm thinking maybe 15, 20 million gallons a year are applied in the Carolinas. That's thousands and thousands of 18-wheeler loads. going down. It's going to wear off into the streams. We're creating this problem. I know you guys are doing studies of the Chesapeake Bay, and these materials are prevalent there as well, but there's a safer alternative. So please help us, spread the word. Thanks for attending. We appreciate your time.